"Ma'am, could you double-check that's your luggage? It looks out of place," said the purser, her voice cutting through the quiet murmur of first class like a boot on polished tile. Metal buckles rattled as an overhead bin swung closed. The scent of coffee mingled with day-old perfume. From seat 3A, all eyes tracked the exchange, some curious, a few masked behind sunglasses, and one woman with a service dog frozen mid-motion. Dr. Rosalind Turner folded her crisp newspaper, spine clicking, and set it on the tray table. She adjusted her reading glasses, glancing at the open folder beside her, its embossed seal glinting gold against navy. The purser, Joyce Ocken, navy blazer taut at the shoulder, fine lines bracketing her grim mouth, shifted her weight so the aisle was nearly blocked. She held a printed manifest, tapping the corner against her palm. The air pressed in close. Rosalind smelled stress under citrus deodorant. "Is there a problem with my carry-on?" Rosalind asked, tone even. Joyce's eyelids flickered. "For this route, the front bins are reserved for frequent flyers. You may not be aware." The words stacked up, brisk and neat, but her eyes darted to a Caucasian man 2 rows behind, his duffel still in the bin overhead. Rosalind's voice cut through. "I follow policy, that's my bag." Joyce's lips compressed in a line. "Ma'am, I'll have to relocate it for you. Procedures, you understand." She tugged at the bin, stalling. The bin snapped closed. The hush filled every seam, ranked and orderly. Rosalind slid her phone, screen black, into her bag, letting her finger linger for one breath. Far down the aisle, a chime signaled boarding complete, the light over the galley flickering once, then steady. There was always somewhere else urgency needed to go. From 3B, a seat divider hummed upward, a service dog's collar jangled. The moment held taut, something essential was at risk. The first escalation was already in motion. Joyce moved quickly once the boarding door sealed. Her instructions, barked to the junior attendant, sent bin after bin thudding open, checked and closed. She held her manifest like a shield, expression becoming brisker. Less Nigerian warmth, more protocol, rules wielded as armor. While reaching over Rosalind's head to re-examine the bin, Joyce sniffed. "Too many bags up here. Regulations, you know. These are priority for certain passengers," she said to no one in particular without meeting Rosalind's eye. Rosalind's left hand trembled minutely as she moved it to steady the newspaper, the telltale sign no one in her world but a long-time nurse would notice. She'd read the diagnosis 3 days ago, a chronic illness, lurking beneath tailored suits and scheduled depositions. The folder in her tote, she always packed for contingencies, contained legal pads for a case she'd shepherded for 3 years and a photo of her son at his university graduation. "Keep marching even with blisters," her father once told her in a back pew of a sun-filled church, words tucked away for quiet emergencies like this. Joyce reached up with careful force. The bin popped free with a metallic cough. A moment later, Rosalind saw, out of sequence, her leather briefcase, containing Supreme Court documents, gone from the compartment. Joyce's pale hand shut the bin crisply. "That bag had to go to the rear. Overhead space is for our most loyal flyers." She checked her manifest as if seeking proof. "I'm in seat 3A, Rosalind said, fingers curled, voice clipped. "My ticket was scanned twice at boarding." "Barely a beat. Let's confirm that. Can I see your boarding pass again?" The dog's harness at 3B brushed Rosalind's shoe. The woman beside her, mid-40s with a pinned advocacy badge, met Rosalind's eyes. "I saw her ticket, ma'am," the advocate spoke up, tone measured, phone dangling but not yet raised. "Looks fine to me." Joyce's answering look was sharp but cautious, a veteran's recognition of a new variable. "Please allow crew to handle this, miss. Airline security is everyone's responsibility." Rosalind presented her boarding pass for the 3rd time. "Will there be another check before takeoff?" Joyce leaned in, lowering her voice, each syllable enunciated as if for the record. "Not if procedures are properly followed from the start." The woman with the service dog exhaled, angled her phone up. Live, the red recording light winked to life. The viewer count flickered from 22 to 37, quiet, aware. "Some of us have watched," the advocate said quietly, but Joyce jerked her head away, offense disguised as efficiency. A man in 2C spoke up, voice pinched. "Can we get on with it? Some of us have meetings." Protocols turned into battlegrounds. Anxiety bled up Rosalind's spine. "Please let us depart," urged a business-suited bystander. Rosalind's hands stilled, her jaw locked. A chime sounded over the PA. Everything was harder to hold than 10 minutes before. Her phone vibrated in her bag, bright, insistent. A message previewed, brief due 12:01 p.m/oral argument, SCT moan. Her thumb stopped inches short of the phone. The next words from Joyce landed sharp. I'm sure security will clarify if anything's amiss. Until then, please remain in your seat, ma'am. Rosalind reached for her tote, heel half lifting off the floor. The thought pressed in, leave the battle, save the week's work. She hesitated, weighing what dignity costs when minutes are finite. A small hand, not hers, entered her frame, the advocate's dog nudging Rosalind's sleeve with a velvet nose. A pressure, silent and weighty, held her. She set her tote down, exhaled, reopened her laptop. Joyce, missing the shift, announced, we'll be getting security to confirm every item up here. The tone was sharper now, more clipped. It's better if everyone knows their place. Rosalind did not flinch. The seats creaked under the shifting weight of a watching cabin. Outside, ground crew tangled cords, checked wings. Overhead, departure countdown boomed clear on the cabin intercom. All passengers prepare for immediate pushback. Doors will be closed in 5 minutes. The urgency snarled around Rosalind, then receded. She nudged her laptop open, cursor blinking across a calendar reminder, oral argument, U.S. Supreme Court, Moan 9 a.m. The text lit against a page of legal citations. Emails scrolled past, subject lines urgent. Need final version ASAP, Denver team en route. On screen, a comment scrolled up on the advocate's live stream. What's going on up there? Another. We're watching, hold her accountable. Joyce paced. She signaled to another crew member, seeking backup but getting only a wary look. Her fingers danced along the manifest, back and forth like a code tapped out under pressure. 4 rows back, the first officer appeared, a white shirt immaculate against the murky newsprint of the cabin. Is there an issue up here? He asked, looking from Joyce to Rosalind. Joyce leapt to answer. This passenger may have taken an incorrect bin. Security procedure requires verification. The syllables came faster now. I've shown my boarding pass. Twice, Rosalind answered, each word methodical. The first officer nodded. We appreciate cooperation. Is there a specific regulation in question? He turned his head, sizing Rosalind with a pilot's calm. Rosalind asked, what's the airline's written priority order for overhead bin allocation on non-international business shuttles? It landed. The first officer blinked, attention sharpening. I'll need to check the manual. Joyce's face went rigid. It's our crew's discretion, that's the guideline. The officer's gaze did not waver. I'll call operations. We want this done by the book. Joyce swallowed once, stepping back to the galley. We don't have time for all that. Departure schedule's not ours to mess with. We'll see to it, the officer replied levelly before vanishing behind the curtain. A wedge of silence settled over the seats. In the seconds that followed, the rhythm changed. The first officer dialed into the cockpit line, voice carrying down the aisle, half muffled. Yeah, I'm on the front cabin, passenger claim, bin protocol, no deviation, need ops to check manifest. He stood, eyes on an unseen point mid-cabin, shifting his jaw, thumb tracing a straight line down his tie. The whirring of the ventilation echoed. Each time the manual's tab flipped, his posture grew more rigid. Ops says no written policy discriminates bin by loyalty tier on this route, he finally murmured, scribbling in the margin of a form. He risked a glance at Rosalind, lingering half a beat longer than politeness allowed. What about past incidents? He asked into the receiver, tension moving through his knuckles. He glanced again at Rosalind, then toward Joyce, whose hand fidgeted with her collar, nails skating over the fabric in jittery sprints. Legal review, yes, sir. Passenger's name? Rosalind E. Turner. The officer paled slightly, eyes darting from the manifest to Rosalind's folder where the gold seal's insignia faced up. He straightened, voice lower, and leaned in to a junior attendant. Quick, run to the gate. Ask them for the envelope. It's urgent. In the rear galley, Joyce smoothed her skirt twice, then shot a pleading look at her younger colleague. Don't let them put this on me. I'm protecting procedure. The advocate phone, now at hip level, spoke to her stream. Viewer count is jumping, nearly 300 now, reposting with hashtag air rights denied. On screen, the comment flood doubled. Name her, that's Dr. Turner, she's lead counsel. Rosalind placed her hands on her tray, still. Her eyes remained forward, lips pressed shut, a portrait of studied calm. An envelope appeared from the curtain, the gate agent's name badge still attached. The first officer tore it open, slid out a single page, letterhead unmistakable, court seal raised, signature in blue ink. The decision came in 4 words. Eyes locked, time froze. Envelope for Dr. Turner. Nostrils flared, Joyce's mouth parted, a second too slow to mask it, but words faltered. Her hands fell to her sides, knuckles turned inward, veins standing in relief. A single heartbeat later, the cabin lights snapped twice. The temperature dropped. The first officer squared his stance, voice carrying. We have confirmation. Dr. Turner is authorized counsel in the Patel civil action pending before Supreme Court. No one moved. The overhead lights hummed insistently. 3 rows of passengers sat, backs bowed, breathing shallow. The executive in 2C looked down, wedding ring twisting. The bystander from earlier shut off his phone without looking. Witness livestream flashed to 4,000 views. Rosalind turned slightly, just enough for her words to travel. You never know who you're moving, she said, tone lighter than glass. Outside, a plane taxied by, indifferent. Rosalind stood, gathering her coat. In the hush, the man in 2C stared at his hands. A woman in 4A stared at the window, blinking. The advocate with the dog-mouthed thank you, thumb still on livestream. Rosalind turned, leaning toward Joyce for a moment. Her voice low, intimate, clinical, final. Sometimes it's the rule book that's out of place. No retaliation, no heat, just balance restored. As Rosalind passed aisle 1, a passenger looked away, another mumbled sorry. The last, a crew member, fumbled her phone behind her back. The witness, recording the aftermath, captured the purser as she sat, spine curved, eyes darting to the cockpit, a shockwave of inaction settling on the crew. On the jet bridge, the boundaries of control sharp in fluorescent light. Air felt colder, regret lining the walls. At the terminal entrance, an airline executive waited, tailored suit marked by a streak of coffee. He stepped forward, hands open. I wanted to apologize in person, Dr. Turner. What happened was unacceptable. Her answer was soft but unyielding. You have more to fix than this one flight. No confrontation, only projected standards. The curb waited, wind carving lines in concrete. A black sedan pulled up, door swinging open with mechanical precision. Inside, Rosalind connected her Bluetooth earpiece to her phone, blue icon blinking. She dialed. Update me, am I cleared for the argument? She asked. A crackle then. Yes, Dr. Turner, brief filed within deadline, you're on. She allowed a single exhale. Then, let's focus on the real fight. Downtown slipped by in glassy streaks. Daylight filtered off the marble conference table as the board met, within 48 hours of the incident. The CEO's wristwatch flashed. The general counsel shifted in his seat, voices hushed but crackling with urgency. Share price is down 11% since last quarter's case filing, but since the Denver route incident, down 4% more, the CFO hissed. That's $1.7 billion in market cap 2 weeks. Footage hit 8 million views overnight. Civil Rights Subcommittee already flagged us, DOJ investigation incoming. The chief compliance officer muttered, flipping through crisis protocol. We settle now, $500 million minimum plus 5-year federal monitor, said the general counsel. We clean house. New bias training, bin policy rewritten, all crew completed within 60 days. If not, board seats forfeit, per FTC consent order. A silent vote, fast as rain. 3 decisions passed. Immediate discipline for implicated crew, external monitor installed, all cabin recordings archived for legal review. On live news, the anchor kept her jaw set, voice crisp. In breaking news, Turner v. North States Airlines forces major policy overhauls after a viral first-class incident. Hashtag out of place reaches 16 million in 24 hours. Airlines settlement, federal monitoring, and crew changes mark industry shakeup. Shareholders brace for continued fallout. This is Blair Andrews reporting. In a marble lobby, Rosalind Turner walked coolly into the Supreme Court just before argument, a dozen television trucks lining the curb. A law clerk rushed past, clutching notes. Dr. Turner, sorry I saw you on the news. They shouldn't have. Rosalind stopped her with a measured nod. This case is bigger than one flight. Let's keep our focus. 2 steps more and the courtroom door swung shut behind her. Outside, the world debated numbers and policies. Inside, the law persisted. The numbers followed. 11% stock drop, real money, real consequence. 8 million direct viewers, 16 million hashtag hits. Settlement, $500 M monitor. 5 years, staff retraining affecting over 4,700 crew, each name on a new roster. For every flight, another recalibration. Dignity once denied, now woven into procedure. 6 months later, at 32,000 feet above the Rockies, Dr. Turner reclined in 1D. A different flight attendant smiled, asked if she needed anything else, set her briefcase gently in the overhead bin, and moved on. No manifest, no oblique questions, only routine. Rosalind smiled. Thank you, that's all for now. A system moves on assumptions until someone refuses them. Bystanders watch until it's their silence under scrutiny. Change arrives, not as thunder, but as small choices echoing outward. If safety has a cost, so does dignity, and only one debt compounds interest forever. If this story moved you, share it with someone who won't look away next time. Subscribe for more stories that demand dignity over mere compliance. Speak the truth in every aisle on every flight, and let silence be the rarest sound at all. In the space between the policy and the practice, we find each other, never out of place. The gavel dropped, echoing through marble pillars as the Supreme Court session concluded. A hush lingered after the justices' final questions, each inquiry itself a scar, a suture, a warning stitched by law into living lives. Rosalind closed her folio. Her hands were steady, the same hands that days ago hesitated over a bin, carrying a weight unmeasured by airline manifest or court order. Outside, press huddled under a marble alcove as the late spring rain came in diagonal sheets, striking the columns with the sound of distant applause. A law clerk pressed through the crowd, umbrella half collapsed, voice hurried. "Dr. Turner, can I walk you to the car?" "Of course, Angela," Rosalind said softly, surrendering her pace to the flanking guidance. In the hush that came with each careful step, Prada heels slicing puddles in the sidewalk, Angela kept glancing sideways, her clipboard pressed against a sodden raincoat. "I watched what happened in Denver. My younger sister cried seeing your live stream. She's pre-law. She wrote her college essay about you last night." Rosalind's lips curled into a gentle, weary smile. "Tell her the law is not for the faint of heart." "I will," Angela breathed. "But we need to see it lived out. Some days we only get glimpses." Around them, distant sirens faded. Rosalind's driver lingered at the curb, umbrella in hand. As she slipped into the cool interior, the city rising beyond the foggy window, Rosalind let herself feel the ache in her bones, the cost exacted by every refusal to step aside, every quiet claiming of space. Her phone chimed with the familiar cadence of incoming texts. The first was from Jacob, her son, now halfway across the country at university, saw the arguments. "Proud of you, Mom. Don't let them move you." She typed, still marching. Blisters and all, her father's words echoing down the decades. She set the phone on the seat, watching raindrops braid insect trails against the glass, remembering every touch and insult her career had weathered, each one, ultimately, a wound turned into cause. The car hummed through the city grid, delivering her to the stone facade of the downtown office, where a team of junior associates and paralegals waited in the shadowed lobby, backbone and engine of the class action that now bore her name. A nervous intern passed her a stack of paper, eyes round. "They're all waiting for you upstairs. And the board wants to debrief, too. Media requests keep coming." Rosalind pressed a hand to the intern's trembling wrist. "You did well. Today you get to choose how to show up. That's how change becomes culture." The elevator doors parted. The conference room smelled of hope, caffeine, anxiety, and sharpened pencils. Her lead paralegal, Marable, rose, a soft catch in her voice. "Rosalind, the new numbers. 112 passengers have emailed us since Denver. 60 civil complaints filed in 48 hours. Your face is everywhere." "That's a start," Rosalind said. "No settlement closes this story. Each name is a chapter now." She laid her folio on the glass table. "Let's prepare for the follow-on actions. I'll write an open letter tonight. It goes out with the settlement press release." She turned to Marable. "And before you ask, yes, I will address the young woman with the service dog. Find her for me. I want to hear her story and her words for the record." Marable's face brightened. She reached out already. "Her name's Abigail," she said. "Dr. Turner spoke for more than just herself." She'd like to join the conference call if you'd have her. Schedule it for tomorrow, Rosalind answered. Let her speak first. The circle of faces at the table, diverse in hue, in hope, in practiced reserve, relaxed. For a moment, the law's machinery became something gentler, almost a home. Her phone buzzed with another alert. White House statement, federal oversight confirmed, press briefing scheduled for 3 p.m. And below it, a series of direct messages, some angry, some inspired, some heartbreaking. My son was denied boarding for his wheelchair last fall. I'm in FA, but it isn't always the policy, it's who's in charge that day. Thank you. You reminded me I belong too. Rosalind left her phone face down. That night in the privacy of her apartment, she paced the hardwood floors, the city's pulse a distant double beat against the window panes. 2 blocks away, the neon, 24-hour news scrolled headlines along a lead crawl, her name bracketed with the words landmark and systemic. She read Abigail's message twice, then called. A woman's voice answered, low and careful. Dr. Turner, this is Abigail, and this, there was a pause, a muted snuffling sound, is Hera asking for her dinner. Rosalind grinned, momentarily untethered from litigation and media glare. I owe Hera an apology for her disrupted routine the other day. She forgave you, Abigail said quietly. Dogs are better than most at that. There was a gentle silence as Hera's tags jingled. Then Abigail's words came all at once. I want to testify about what it meant to watch you stand your ground, not just because it was right for you, but because of who saw it. Me, my group, all of us with disabilities or service animals. We live with rules that change whenever someone else feels inconvenienced. Rosalind let the silence hold for a moment. Write down everything you want to say. I'll make sure the right people hear it, under oath if you like, on the record or on camera. Abigail's laughter was soft, hesitant, but earnest. And here I thought flying was tough, speaking up might be tougher. Change is hardest for those expected to wait their turn, Rosalind said. But sometimes the only thing that needs to change is who's holding the microphone. Then I'm in, Abigail replied, her voice now clear. When the call ended, Rosalind felt the old exhaustion replaced by a tethering sense of purpose. She spent the next hour composing her open letter, line by line, balancing measured outrage, gratitude, and unimpeachable fact. Every industry designs itself around power and convenience, but justice is designed for those not yet in the room. After my experience on North States Airlines, I know this. Policy without equity is injury by another name. Let us not confuse order with justice, nor silence with peace. She added in the final paragraph the promise that had sustained her career. This story is not about one person in one seat, or even one viral moment. It is about whether our systems honor the presence of every traveling soul, or only those who look expected. I will spend the rest of my working life making sure the answer cannot be forgotten. She clicked send at 1:03 a.m., her words transmitted to every inbox from legal press to late-night newsrooms. 4 months passed. The Federal Aviation Compliance Office published its first findings, 363 confirmed reports of discriminatory policy enforcement within a single quarter, all traced back to vague or inconsistent crew discretion. New guidelines went into effect. Overhead bins were now plainly labeled. First come, first serve, regardless of tier or status. Dignity is our policy. Training modules followed. Scenarios, de-escalation, implicit bias testing. Joyce Ocken, the former purser, now in mandatory retraining, watched her own actions replayed in front of her peers on projector screens. She sat rigid but attentive, every inflection echoing back her intentions and their unintended cost. On her ride home, Joyce thumbed a text message half-written to her sister. Trying to do right isn't always enough. Learning when to pause, when to listen. She kept it in drafts, a promise to herself. Elsewhere, the airline's new diversity and equity lead, hired on Rosalind's advice, organized their first carrier-wide virtual town hall. The theme was simple, understated. Every passenger counts. Rosalind was invited to give the keynote. She started her remarks with a simple story, not of grievance, but of resolve. The first time I flew as lead counsel, I wore my father's old watch. He'd given it to me outside his church in a pew where sunlight burned away every shadow. His words, stitched through a lifetime of effort, were this: if your seat feels out of place, fill it anyway. In time, the world will move for you, not the other way around. Today, those words belong to all of us sitting where others think we don't belong. The reaction was immediate. standing applause from 30,000 screens, hundreds of comments lighting the chat. By afternoon, her story ran on every major news segment, headlines ticking across airports and hospital waiting rooms and university common spaces. Young associates at her firm drafted new policy templates, distributing them to neighboring states' carriers who adopted them as model practice. The effect rippled outward, as law does. Copycat reforms, union petitions, lawsuits settled before ever being filed, sometimes just the denial of a small indignity before it could wound. Rosalind's workload doubled. Her voice became a sought-after standard. Sometimes, tired but unsentimental, she would set her briefcase down and close her eyes, remembering that 12-minute eternity where a carry-on, a brief, and a life's dignity all hung in the balance. On a Tuesday, as late autumn settled over the eastern seaboard, Rosalind passed through the airport again. Alone, no live stream tethered to her sense of safety, her briefcase now unremarkable. Cleared, checked, met with a smile instead of an inquest. She settled into 4A, feeling, for the first time in too long, simply expected. There was a tap on her shoulder. "Excuse me, are you Dr. Turner?" A young woman, early 20s, her ID badge labeled operations trainee. Hazel eyes searched Rosalind's face, a nervous smile beneath. "I am," Rosalind said, not rising but tilting her head warmly. "My mother wanted me to say thank you. She flies for North State's Denver base. She told us what your story changed and, well, she always says, we work with rules but we live with people. She teaches that in training now." Rosalind's voice softened. "Your mother is the future of the job, then." The woman straightened, pride blooming. "She says you reminded her what that really means." Rosalind nodded, her heart tugging at contradictory directions, sorrow for what was lost, hope for what gently rebuilt itself. "It's not my story anymore. It belongs to every person who refuses to be made invisible." By the time the flight reached cruising altitude, the flight crew had quietly repositioned. They asked Rosalind if she wanted coffee, joked about the turbulence, offered a blanket with no mention of status. It was, perhaps, the most radical form of respect, to simply be present and let her be present too. Later in the flight, Rosalind sat in the galley on invitation, sharing apple juice with the trainee and a flight attendant in from JFK. The conversation turned practical. "What would you change next?" the trainee asked, "if you had a magic wand?" Rosalind smiled, considering. Every boarding announcement would begin, "Every journey here is equal. Every name on this manifest was paid for in memories and dreams and labor, not just points." And I'd write that above every bin, every gate, every crew manual, until it wasn't needed anymore. The attendant nodded, mulling over her words. "Maybe we can get there now. Thank you for lighting the way." As the landing gear dropped, the city lights nodded into a steady, beckoning grid below. Rosalind watched them, thinking of her son, of Abigail and Hera, of Joyce, Marable, the new policies, the old wounds healing. And then, finally, she allowed herself to rest, trusting that her refusal to be moved had helped move a world. When Rosalind was asked to keynote another legal conference, this one with judges, regulators, and advocates from across the country, she said yes, then asked that Abigail join her as co-speaker. Abigail arrived with Hera wearing a sparkly new vest and a badge reading Advocate. When they took the stage, Abigail steadied herself at the lectern, the room's hush pressing in. "Hera's job is to notice what's missing," Abigail began, her voice unraveling nerves. "For years, I assumed that was my job to notice, cope, accommodate myself to the world. But seeing Dr. Turner, seeing her claim her space as someone who wasn't expected, I realized it's okay to expect the world to accommodate us too." She turned, meeting Rosalind's eyes. She didn't just make room for herself. She made it for all of us who have ever been told we're out of place. The applause was thunderous, but it was the quiet after. A few pale faces holding back tears, a judge's gavel tapped with new intent, a congresswoman taking notes on her phone. That felt like a true beginning. Afterward, Rosalind and Abigail lingered over coffee. "You don't seem out of place anymore," Abigail said softly, stroking Hera's ears. "Some rooms I will always enter as a question mark," Rosalind replied, her smile tinged with rue. "But now I'm certain I have the right to ask and the right to stay." Abigail grinned. "Maybe someday we'll both be old enough to board a flight and finally just fit. That, or we'll raise enough voices that out of place is a phrase for history books." They parted with a promise to check in monthly, for updates, consultations, or, on the toughest days, simple solidarity. By the following spring, the Department of Transportation released an annual report. Instances of bin-related conflict down by 80%. Bias-related complaints halved. Airline employee surveys confirmed heightened satisfaction. Protocol now an ally, not ammunition. On the anniversary of her ordeal, Rosalind received a hand-addressed envelope at her office. Inside, a simple note, unsigned save for a lowercase J. The handwriting was threadbare but careful. I watched you that day. I'm still learning how to do better. I hope the world does too. She tucked the note into her folder, just above the Supreme Court brief. Documents side by side, cause and effect, pain and progress aligned. At the law school where she'd once been denied moot court leadership for being too intense, invitations poured in for guest lectures. Her calendar was crowded with Zooms, flights, handwritten letters. She never took the same airline twice in a row, sometimes to keep the industry honest, sometimes to remind herself how widespread and yet particular every battle was. And yet change, she mused, is always local first. To every law student or crew member who thanked her, she repeated her father's words, adding her own coda. Keep marching even with blisters, and when you see someone moved for being out of place, mark that spot and make it yours too. One night after a particularly long mediation, Rosalind found herself in a hotel lounge, nursing peppermint tea before a late red-eye home. A couple at the next table recognized her. The woman, mid-30s, smiled. "You were the one, right? From Denver. I'm a flight attendant. I tell that story every training now." Rosalind smiled tiredly. "I hope it's not too cautionary." The woman shook her head. "It's proof that we're all on the manifest. The crew, too. Sometimes it takes someone outside the system to remind us of that." Her partner lifted a glass. "To Dr. Turner, the reason policies and people both have names." Rosalind blushed but lifted her cup. "To everyone who stops a rule from becoming a wall." Laughter dissolved fatigue. For that night at least, belonging was effortless. New cases came, not all victories. But the world, having watched one woman forced to reclaim her space at 36,000 feet, never quite again let procedure displace person. New hashtags trended, some angry, some hopeful. Rosalind took to responding, using each viral moment not as the story's end, but its newest chapter. And in law offices, airline break rooms, disability rights seminars, people kept telling the story, not of the bag or even of the Supreme Court, but of the refusal to leave quietly, of the question asked, and the answer that made the world wiser. A single briefcase, once a cause for conflict, became an emblem. A retired airline worker hand-painted its likeness on a mural in the Denver terminal beneath the words, "Everyone deserves a place." On her final flight before retirement, Rosalind found herself again in 1D. The pilot, female, young, with sharp eyes, greeted her with a nod. "I started flying after I read about you. Sometimes you just need to know someone made it through headwinds." Rosalind beamed. "If I helped, it was by refusing to wait for perfect circumstances. Headwinds make for good landings if you're stubborn enough." Their laughter was muffled by takeoff, engines thrumming. Above the clouds, coffee was poured, bins closed without incident, passengers dozed and dreamed unremarked. Rosalind closed her eyes, feeling the weight of both legacy and lift. The sky, at last, belonged equally to everyone aboard. For in every hard-won space, every seat reclaimed, the only things truly out of place were the barriers no one had challenged, now, at last, toppled and cleared for flight. And somewhere below or above the shifting clouds, 1,000 new stories gathered, ready to turn turbulence into forward motion, one small, resolute refusal at a time.